So I'm getting ready to read to you and with you the story for lesson 4, All's Well That Ends Well. Before we start reading, I wanted to review some of these words that we have that schwa sound in it, the sound that we've already been learning, and we're going to be reading as we read this story, so just sort of a preview. First one, country, nervously, young, touched, generous, glove, and come. So those are some words that we're going to be reading that have that sound inside of this story. Also, we're going to be learning the meanings of the word well. Okay, so the word well, it says all's well that ends well. Okay, so there are several meanings of the word well. A lot of times whenever you think of well, you think somebody saying, well. So that's one meaning. It is an exclamation. Okay. Well, I don't know. Well, yeah. Kind of a way of just expressing yourself, an exclamation. Then there is the meaning that, well, everything is fine. For example, today I am well, and I hope you are well. I hope everything is fine with you. And then, well, a hole in the ground. Or getting water. And so we're going to be reading this story, and we're going to hear that word well. And what I would like for you to do is every time that you hear the word well, I want you to make a motion. Whatever is your favorite you can do. You can go like this. A lot of times we like to go like this, or we like to go like that. That'd be fine. You can stand up, you can clap, you can slap your knees, whatever you would like. But whenever we hear that word well, I want you to make that motion. So Miss Snyder, she's going to go like this. Okay. All right. All's well that ends well. So in this case, it's meaning everything is fine. Everything is fine that ends fine. So I would like for you to go to your book. For you, it's on page 21. Here's a picture in color, so I wanted to show that to you. I want you to put your finger on the first word here. Sir Gus rode the king's horse out into the country. He galloped over green land and lovely rolling hills. Nice adjectives there, aren't there? All was well, meaning all was fine, everything was fine, until he began to itch. He scratched his leg, he scratched his neck, he scratched his back, and nearly fell off the horse. Nothing seemed to help. At last, Sir Gus told himself he had better stop, lest he scratch himself right off the king's horse. Remember, that's what happened before. That's how he didn't have a horse, was because he scratched until he fell off. Don't want that to happen again. Sir Gus stopped in front of a farmhouse. Near the farmhouse was a stone well. It's a stone well, so it's not saying that everything is fine. It's not saying the stones are fine. It is talking about a hole in the ground where you can get some water. Standing near the well where you can get some water, a place where you can get some water, was a young, strong-looking man. Sir Gus spoke to the young man politely. Pardon me, good sir, he said. May I drink from your well? So he's wanting some water, so it's this meaning right here. Yes, you may, said the young man. Sir Gus went to draw from the well. To draw from the well does not mean that he's getting a pencil and starting to draw a picture of a well. It means that he is pulling up the bucket and bringing the water to him. He's drawing it up and pulling it towards him. He grabbed the rope and began to tug on it, but then he felt the need to scratch. Oh my goodness, his need to scratch is never a good time. He let go of the rope and started itching himself. Soon he was scratching himself so hard that he started jumping up and down. He jumped up and down so much that he fell into the well, meaning he fell in that hole, and landed with a splash at the bottom. Ack! Cried Sir Gus. What have I done? Notice that picture of him jumping around trying to scratch. It must be hard to scratch inside of the armor there. So I imagine that is kind of hard. It was a good thing that Sir Gus was tall. The water in the well only came up to his chest. The young man peered down into the well. He was looking down. Oh, well, I almost missed one. He was looking down into that hole in the ground. Have no fear, he shouted to Sir Gus. I will help you. I will drop the bucket down. Take hold of it, and I will lift you up. Sir Gus waited nervously at the bottom of the dark well. He was waiting at the bottom of that hole that has water in it. His legs began to shiver and shake. The bucket came down the well. Sir Gus grabbed the bucket and held on tight. Slowly, the young man began to bring Sir Gus up out of the well. So he was coming up out of the ground, of that hole in the ground. As Sir Gus reached the top of the well, as he reached the top of that hole, the young man offered the knight his hand. Young man, said Sir Gus as he stepped out of the well, I am touched by your generous deed. I would like to thank you for helping me. What is your name? My name is Robin, replied the man. Well then, Robin, said Sir Gus, I thank you. Now in this case, when he says, well then, Robin, is he saying everything is fine, Robin? Or is he talking about a hole in the ground? Or is he kind of giving an exclamation saying, well, Robin? Well then, Robin, I thank you. So he's giving an exclamation. The two men shook hands. Robin clasped the knight's hand so tightly that water dripped from his glove. Robin smiled. Come into my house, he said. I will find you some dry clothing. So Gus went inside. Sit down, said Robin. I will fetch you some dry clothing and something to drink. Robin left the room. Oh dear, there's a cat. I'm kind of thinking in my head, is this going to cause problems right here? It might, because we know what cats do to Sir Gus. Oh dear, look at Sir Gus's face there. Let's find out what's going to happen. Sir Gus sat down on a wooden chair. As he did so, a large black cat jumped onto his lap. My prediction was correct. That cat is going to cause some problems. At once, Sir Gus began to itch all over. He got up and started jumping up and down. He jumped so hard that he knocked over a chair and bumped into a shelf. Some things fell off the shelf. As he bent down to pick these things up, Sir Gus spotted a ring. Wonder what ring that is. It was the king's ring. Robin was the robber. What an interesting name for a robber. Robin. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Or Sir Gus, he looks kind of miserable. Sir Gus stood thinking for a moment. There is no point fighting with the man, Sir Gus said to himself. That would be dangerous. I can tell by his grip that he is very strong. So remember, he held on to Sir Gus's hand very tightly, so tightly that water squeezed out of his shell, out of his armor. So to grip means to grab hold with your hand. So the man was very strong. He could grab hold very strong onto Sir Gus's hand. And so Sir Gus knew he was a very strong man. Sir Gus grabbed the ring. Then he tiptoed quietly out of the house. He mounted his horse and rode back to see the king. He's heading back to the king because, of course, he wants to return the ring. That was his job that he was supposed to do. Now here we have our next story starting, called The Hungry Troll. Sound like there's going to be a troll in the next story. But for today, I want to make sure, yes. We have these sentences back here, and I don't want you to do this part of the lesson. We've talked about it a little bit as teachers, and we just feel like that would be a little challenging for students to do, is to come up with sentences that use all the meanings of well. However, if your mom and dad have some time to help you, you can come up with a sentence for the word well. Mrs. Snyder said that we should go online and log in to Reading Eggs. That would be an example of using well as an exclamation. And as I said to you earlier, Mrs. Snyder is well. That means everything is fine with me. I have no problems. I'm warm. I'm fed, not sick at all, not even tired, not even thirsty. Well, a hole in the ground. We have a well outside in front of our house because that's how we get water at our house. We have a well that has been dug down into the ground. It's a hole. So those are some examples of some sentences that you could come up with. But as I say, what I'd really like you to focus on is finding those adjectives in the story. And I want you to circle those adjectives. One dark and stormy night while King Alfred was sleeping. Instead of saying dark and stormy, I want you to come up with some other adjectives. And then I want you to draw some pictures of some of the sentences that you've created with your own adjectives. And then this, page 25, these are some of your words. All the different ways that you can say the sound using that schwa. So I want you to practice those words with a parent, and then you can maybe even cut them out and make some flashcards and just practice those words so that you're recognizing the different ways to spell words that have the sound inside of them.